Morane-Saulnier M.S.406, the forgotten fighter of the fall of France in the cold, trembling dawn of September 1939, as Europe braced for another descent into total war, one silhouette rose into the dim light above countless French airfields, the Morane-Saulnier M.S.406. Its wings, slim and fragile, seemed almost too delicate for the storm that was about to unfold. Yet for hundreds of French pilots, many of them barely out of flight school, the M.S.406 was all they had. It was the shield of the Armée de l'Air, the nation's frontline fighter, a machine that carried the heavy burden of defending France at its darkest hour. And despite its flaws, despite the cruel mismatch it faced against the Luftwaffe's machines, the M.S.406 carved a place in history through courage, sacrifice, and the desperate will to resist. Origins of a French fighter, the long road to the M.S.406. The story of the Morane-Saulnier M.S.406 begins not in the war-torn skies of 1940, but in the mid-1930s, when France, still traumatized by the carnage of the First World War, found itself lagging behind in the rapid revolution of fighter aircraft technology. While monoplane fighters had already begun to dominate the skies in other nations, French aviation doctrine remained cautious, tied to older biplane concepts and slow procurement cycles. But as tensions rose across Europe, the French Air Ministry finally sought a modern monoplane, ordering a new class of fighters capable of meeting the growing German threat. Enter Morane-Saulnier, a company with a long history in French aviation but little recent success in frontline fighters. Led by engineer Paul-René Gautier, the team designed the M.S.405 and later refined it into what would become the M.S.406, a compact, streamlined monoplane featuring a retractable undercarriage and armed with a powerful 20mm Hispano-Suiza cannon firing through the propeller hub. On paper, it was a major leap forward. In practice, it was a compromise, lightweight, easy to fly, but underpowered and lacking the ruggedness of its competitors. Nevertheless, France needed fighters, and it needed them fast. Mass production was approved. By 1938, the M.S.406 became France's most numerous modern fighter. It represented hope, a symbol of modernization. But even as the first production aircraft rolled out of factories, the M.S.406 was already becoming outdated. The world was moving toward faster, all-metal fighters with superior engines, and Morane-Saulnier's creation struggled to keep pace. Anatomy of the M.S.406, a fighter built on compromise. The M.S.406 had elegance, but its beauty concealed limitations that would soon prove fatal on the battlefield. Its airframe was built from a mix of steel tubing, wood, and fabric, an approach more typical of early 1930s aircraft than of the cutting-edge fighters emerging in Britain or Germany. While the design made the aircraft relatively light and easy to maintain, it also made it fragile. The wings could bend under stress, fuel tanks were insufficiently protected, and the entire structural concept lagged behind the all-metal, flush-riveted lines of its German opponent, the Bf109E.AT. The heart of the M.S.406 was the liquid-cooled Hispano-Suiza 12Y31 engine. With just over 860 horsepower, it was smooth-running but lacked the raw muscle required for high-speed interception. The M.S.406 could barely reach 486 km per hour, 302 miles per hour, a full 60 km per hour slower than the Bf109E. The climb rate, vital in dogfights, was inferior. The aircraft bled energy quickly in turns and could not sustain high-speed maneuvers. Where it excelled was low-speed handling. Pilots praised its gentle nature, stable behavior, and forgiving stall characteristics. In training or peacetime patrols, it was delightful. In war against the Luftwaffe, it was tragically outclassed, yet one element stood out as truly modern: its armament. A 20mm HS.404 cannon fired through the propeller hub, backed by two 7.5mm Mach 1934 machine guns in the wings. When the cannon worked, and its drum feed system often jammed, it could tear through enemy aircraft with devastating force. But the limited ammunition, just 60 rounds, meant pilots had mere seconds of firing time. Many never got a second chance in combat. The eve of war, France's false sense of security. Despite its shortcomings, the M.S.406 formed the backbone of the French fighter force when Germany unleashed its invasion of Poland in September 1939. During the phony war, the months-long period of uneasy calm, French pilots flew endless patrols over quiet borders. The aircraft that would soon be fighting for survival instead spent their days chasing shadows, smugglers, observation balloons, and occasional reconnaissance aircraft. Morale was stable, but a quiet fear lingered in the minds of many pilots, the sense that they were flying into a storm equipped with yesterday's tools. Germany, meanwhile, continued to refine its fighters, and Bf-109E units honed their skills in the skies of Poland. When France's turn came, the disparity in equipment would become brutally clear. The eve of war, France's false sense of security despite its shortcomings, the M.S.406 formed the backbone of the French fighter force when Germany unleashed its invasion of Poland in September 1939. During the phony war, the months-long period of uneasy calm, French pilots flew endless patrols over quiet borders. The aircraft that would soon be fighting for survival instead spent their days chasing shadows, smugglers, observation balloons, and occasional reconnaissance aircraft. Morale was stable, but a quiet fear lingered in the minds of many pilots, the sense that they were flying into a storm equipped with yesterday's tools. Germany, meanwhile, continued to refine its fighters, and Bf-109E units honed their skills in the skies of Poland. When France's turn came, the disparity in equipment would become brutally clear. The Battle of France begins. The M.S.406 meets the Luftwaffe. Dawn broke on May 10, 1940, with the roar of engines and the thunder of bombs. The Luftwaffe struck airfields across Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. Many M.S.406s were destroyed on the ground before they ever took to the sky. But countless French pilots scrambled into the air, engines choking with cold oil, guns jammed with frost, and climbed into what would become one of the most desperate aerial struggles of the war. The first encounters between M.S.406s and Bf-109Es exposed a reality no amount of bravery could overcome. The German fighter was faster, could climb more rapidly, dive more aggressively, and retained more energy in combat. French pilots learned quickly that they could not escape a pursuing 109, they could only outturn it. Thus, the M.S.406 became a defensive fighter, forced into tight horizontal maneuvers as its only hope of survival. Still, despite overwhelming odds, the M.S.406 scored victories. French pilots, many highly skilled and fiercely motivated, used every trick available, flying low to blend into terrain, ambushing bombers from cloud shadows, and working as tight-knit pairs to bait German pilots into traps. Some aces made the M.S.406 dance in ways its designers could never have imagined, but tragedy overshadowed these small triumphs. The aircraft's light construction made it vulnerable to damage. A single 20mm round or short burst of machine gun fire could cripple it. The cooling system was exposed, and many M.S.406s went down trailing steam, their engines boiling over within seconds of being hit. Pilots often returned to base with torn fabric wings, ruptured radiators, or landing gear locked in place from combat damage. For every victory, there were losses, too many. The M.S.406, valiant as it was, could not change the outcome of the battle. By June, with France collapsing, the aircraft fought a losing war on diminishing fuel supplies, patchwork repairs, and airfields under constant bombardment. Moments of heroism. Pilots who made a difference. The documentary story of the M.S.406 is incomplete without the human courage behind it. Pilots such as René Pommier-Leyrargues and Camille Ploubeau became symbols of resistance. They pressed attacks against impossible odds, diving through formations of German bombers while evading Bf-109 escorts. Many did not return. Others continued fighting until the armistice, refusing to abandon comrades. Point 1 Squadron, Groupe de Chasse 3/7, flew its M.S.406s until the very last days of the campaign. Their aircraft, battered and worn, bore scars from dozens of engagements. Their stories became legends of French aviation, a testament not to the power of the machine, but to the spirit of those who flew it. Beyond France, the M.S.406 across Europe. While France was its birthplace, the M.S.406's story extended far beyond the boundaries of the French mainland. Switzerland, Finland, Turkey, Lithuania, and even Croatia operated the type in various capacities. Each nation experienced the aircraft differently, and in some cases, they improved it beyond what the original designers imagined. Switzerland, neutral skies, determined defenders. The Swiss Air Force purchased M.S.406s before the war and built additional examples under license. Swiss pilots clashed with both Allied and Axis aircraft, violating their airspace. Their aircraft, designated D-3800 and D-3801, featured stronger engines, better cooling, and improved reliability. Remarkably, Swiss Marines stayed in frontline service into the early 1950s, far longer than anyone would have expected. Finland, the Morane transformation in Finland, The M.S.406 faced Soviet aircraft in the Winter War and Continuation War. Initially underpowered, the Finnish aircraft were later upgraded into the Morane variant, fitted with the Soviet Klimov M105 engine. This modification dramatically boosted speed, climb rate, and firepower, turning the once outdated M.S.406 into a competitive fighter. Finnish pilots scored numerous victories, and the Morane became one of the most successful adaptations of the airframe. Croatia and Vichy France. After France's surrender, some M.S.406s were absorbed into Vichy forces or passed on to Axis-aligned Croatia. These aircraft flew patrols, training missions, and in some cases, limited combat operations. By this time, the M.S.406 was hopelessly obsolete against modern fighters, but it continued to serve because it was simple and available, a relic kept alive by necessity. The attempt to modernize M.S.410 and unrealized dreams. Recognizing the M.S.406's increasing obsolescence, designers worked on improvements such as the M.S.410, featuring enhanced armament, improved aerodynamics, and better cooling. Yet production delays, inadequate engines, and the collapse of France prevented these upgrades from making a real difference. The M.S.406 remained what it had always been, a transitional fighter, caught between old and new aviation eras. The final years, from frontline to obscurity after 1945, most surviving M.S.406s were quickly retired or scrapped. A few remained in training roles or civilian flight clubs. The aircraft had served bravely but could not compete with the jets and high-performance piston fighters shaping the post-war world. Today, only fragments and a few airframes survive in museums, silent reminders of a machine whose story is often overshadowed by more famous fighters. Legacy of the Morane-Saulnier M.S.406, bravery against the odds. The M.S.406 was not the best fighter of its time, not by speed, firepower, or durability. But history is not written only by the victors of engineering contests. It is shaped by the courage of those who flew flawed machines into battle, knowing their weaknesses but refusing to back down. The Morane-Saulnier M.S.406 symbolizes the desperate struggle of 1940, the bravery of French pilots, and the harsh reality of a nation unprepared for the war it faced. It stands as a monument to determination in the face of overwhelming odds, a reminder that even forgotten fighters have stories worth telling, and that valor can shine through even the most imperfect steel and canvas.